In the Gun, episode 145. Man, we are getting old here on your new favorite WVU football podcast, and we have got another. Our off-season celebrity A-list continues today. This is the Zach Frazier episode. West Virginian, Mountaineer, legend, cult hero. Not enough adjectives to describe this guy, gentlemen. But Zach Frazier, his father Ray, as well too, going to join us on this edition of ITG. And I tell you what, Big O, we've had some big guests, but this one's going to be a lot of fun. Zach Frazier, as he's closed the chapter on his Mountaineer football career, getting ready for the NFL draft, rocketing up draft boards. This is a fun one. This is a big catch for us here on ITG.
Yeah, a lot of good questions, and I'm ready to hear the locker room stories and kind of the whirlwind he's kind of been on since, what took place on the field, and fast forward to now, like where's he at in progression? So super pumped. Zach, dang warrior, man, I'm ready.
Yeah, me as well too. And Jed, I know you've been working on this one, and I know you've got a relationship with Ray, with Mr. Frazier, and there's gonna be some cool stories flying around here for sure.
Yeah, Ray's good people, Zach's good people, come from a great family. Ray and I'll talk about some of the fact that we kind of went up against each other.
That's right. That's
way
right.
back when we wore younger men's clothes. But I can't get past this. Here comes Zach. If there is a living legend in West Virginia football, Zach is one of those, right? I have to wonder, and Wes, weigh in on this. When you look at the folk legend factor that's going to be on this episode tonight, I just can't decide, is Zach Paul Bunyan and Owen the Blue Ox, or is Zach the Blue Ox and Owen the Paul Bunyan, right? We have two of West Virginia's biggest folk legends in one podcast episode. I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of West Virginia podcasting, right? Something might break tonight. I don't know. It might be too heavy.
You know what? It's funny, Jed, that you say that, because on my list of notes here, one of the things that I had to ask Zach was about that, how, you could argue there hasn't been a Mountaineer who's had a legendary of ending as their career since Owen Schmidt that you had down there in Waco. So it is funny how that works. And listen, we all know the legend of Owen Schmidt. I mean, buddy, that's a tough one for anybody to be stacked up against. But like I said, I mean, that is the closest thing that's reminded me. Now, Zach, just when he gets introduced in the NFL in the fall and he runs out of the tunnel, right? He's just got to crank his helmet over his head a couple times and make himself bleed.
Yeah.
And then maybe he'll really be on Owen's level. But no, Jed, it's funny you said that. I literally had that in my notes here to ask him about that and the way his career ended, and do the example of Owen and for different reasons, but very memorable kind of final moments wearing the old gold and blue.
Yeah, he hasn't leaped to McCourty, but he has dragged himself off the field. So maybe in the grand scheme of things, they're kind of equal. I don't know, right?
Well, I tell you what, with this announcement that yes, EA Sports will be making a college football game this summer, we got to get Zach on one of the covers, right? And then we'll really bring this thing full circle.
Speaking of which, I sent it to the group thread. Did you see what the WVU football account on Twitter tweeted?
Back-to-back days of Big O getting some love from the official WVU accounts, and happy belated birthday, Big O, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of
he's shy.
Special time. The Aquarius is rule February.
All the cool kids.
Waylon had. Yeah, you know what I mean. Aquarius. My boy Waylon, his is on Valentine's Day as well. So we're back-to-back birthdays. So it's kind of.
Isn't Major's the 15th? Major Harris the 15th. What is it with mid-February? Right.
I don't know,
Mountaineer
man.
royalty.
Well, Jed, I'm at the end of February, so all the cool kids born here in February. Yes. So I tell you what.
How far at the end of February?
Well, usually the last day of February, except for every 4 years. So February 28th.
February 29th. Are you like 5 years old now?
I look like I'm 5 years old sometimes, don't I? But yes, February 28th is my birthday. It will not be the last day of February this year, but usually I close down the month of February. But yes, Big O, all the cool kids are born in February. It's the shortest month for a reason. It's an exclusive club to be born in there, all right? And big shout out to Big O, big shout out to Waylon as well too. Hope you guys had a fun couple back-to-back birthdays there. All right, before we go to break, like we always do on these special guest episodes, we're going to get wrapped up in a lot, and we'll mention some of these sponsors as we roll along, but I want to make sure to give everybody a thank you up front so that we know that we don't miss anybody. So a big thanks to Bet Online for being a presenting sponsor of In the Gun. We all know where the game starts is at Bet Online. Yeah, football's over, but you got basketball, you got hockey, you got March Madness rolling in here. So make sure you're going to Bet Online for all of your action there to get in on the game where the game starts at Bet Online. A big thank you to JR and Toothman Ford. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. They do great work for our athletes and NIL. Make sure you're supporting those who support the Mountaineers. Fortis, another one of our longtime friends here now on this podcast, and our guy Rick Lewis for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. Make sure you visit fortis.us.com. And our newest friends of the program, Johnston Equipment on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan. We are big excited, big thrilled to have Johnston Equipment in the fold here as well, too. All right, we're going to take our break. We'll have Zach Frazier, his father Ray, with us as well, too. When we come back on the other side, this will be a fun one. You are In the Gun.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
For more West Virginia Mountaineer football content, be sure to follow us on Twitter at In the Gun Podcast.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
If you work the land, you just got to be a jack of all trades type. There's just too much to do. So if you got to be a welder or a farmer or a ditch digger, that's just who you are that day. Then tomorrow, you can be somebody else.
Get your Coyote at the new location of Johnston Equipment between Weston and Buchanan.
Back in the gun here, and we, for the first time ever, have a pair of guests. We've got Zach Frazier and his father, Ray Frazier. I think Ray, one of our original kind of longtime listeners here of ITG. But gentlemen, we're happy to have you back on here. First time, like I said, we've ever had two guests at the same time. This will be a lot of fun. Zach, thank you so much for taking the time. We know Zach doesn't need much of an introduction. Cult hero, folk hero, legend amongst Mountaineer Nation. First Mountaineer to start on the offensive line as a freshman since 1980. And the accolades rolled along from there. All-American, all Big 12. Going to be at the Combine here in a couple weeks, and a pretty high draft pick of an NFL team that's going to be lucky enough to secure his services. Ladies and gentlemen, Zach Frazier with us here in the gun. Zach, thanks for taking the time. We know this is a busy time, busy process for you. So just kind of before we get into some stuff, where are you at right now? What's your day-to-day look like? What are you up to?
Yeah, well, thank you for the introduction first, and thanks for having me on. But
of course,
right now I'm just training in Dallas and just training and rehabbing every day and just, getting ready for, the Combine and Pro Day and stuff like that.
We know it's a challenge for you being away from home, the sacrifice that you're making. I mean, you're halfway across the country, but it's going to pay off eventually. And, for those listening, for those watching on YouTube, it made a lot of sense when we wanted to orchestrate this thing and get you on here. Your dad and I have a history. He's always meant a lot to me. Again, for those listening, back in my Glenville days, I've told Ray he was a pup my senior year at Glenville State. He was a freshman at Fairmont State, so we were part of that rival. We were old school conference realignment. Our conference is no longer around. It's now a different conference, but we just thought, Ray, it would make sense to kind of get you on here with Zach out of town and maybe help coordinate some of these stories because there's going to be a lot of information flying. And you've been so instrumental in turning Zach into what he is today. So we appreciate you being here as well.
Yeah, thank you for having both of us. We really appreciate it.
So
Super excited to have you guys, dude. This is gonna be a lot of fun. Zach, let me kick things off here real quick. What, because I I'm not gonna put my similar situation the same as you, but going into where you're at kind of right now before the draft, I ended up getting invited to the Senior Bowl, ended up suffering a grade 2 MCL sprain, like second day of practice. So it kind of like put me out of, the full on kind of training aspect of going into the draft. What give us the day to day, like really the nuts and bolts, the kind of like, hey, 6 a.m. This is kind of where I start. Give us a run through of kind of like the full day view.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically our week kind of goes Monday and Tuesday we lift and have like a skill session, which is like the combine drills and stuff like that. Wednesday is a recovery day. And then Thursday and Friday we're back at it lifting and doing skill work as well. And then Saturday mornings an arm workout, and it's kind of like a recovery day too. A lot of stretching and just kind of making sure your body's feeling good.
What is there any football work in it? How long of a day is it for you right now?
I stay there a good bit just because I also do a lot of the recovery stuff down here. Like they have a hyperbaric chamber, and I normally get in that for at least an hour every day. They also have like a red light bed, which I normally get in for like 30 or 40 minutes a day. I just spend a lot. I have nothing else to do down here, so I spend a lot of time there. I get there either at 6 or our first workout's at 6 on Mondays and Thursdays, and then at 8 on Tuesdays and Fridays. So I'm normally here until like probably 2 or 3 every day. But yeah, I don't have anything else to do, so I try to, do as much as I can. And of course, spend a lot of time rehabbing in the training room as well.
Awesome. What which hyperbaric chamber are you in? Are you in like the lay down pill one that you zip up and like it like blows up, or they got something fancier?
Yeah, that they have one of those, and they also have one where you just like sit in a chair in there. But I like the laying down one more.
Yeah, get you some Z's.
Yeah.
Man,
definitely.
I remember going through all that stuff, just thinking to myself, like, man, I thought I was just playing football.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot
Trek.
more science to it than just playing.
It's crazy.
One of the convenient things this year, unlike years past, Pro Day has been in Morgantown, right? But with what the Big 12 is doing, Pro Day, all the teams are going to congregate right there where you are in the Dallas area. So that'll be pretty convenient for you to be on hand. What will you be able to do by Pro Day in terms of taking part in?
I should be. It's kind of just where I'm at. So I'm ahead of schedule so far. I'm running and cutting right now. But it's not like it's not ready to be, timed. I'm running good, but I'm not back to 100% yet. I have to start, trusting it again, trusting my leg, and it just doesn't have Like it's getting better fast, but it's just not caught up to my other leg yet. It's close, but so pro day, I think I should be able to do most things. I'll definitely be able to do the field workouts. Just kind of have to see where my numbers are at, if they're, worth running or not.
So Ray, as you're a former center yourself, and this is one of the things that has always fascinated me. Your relationship with Zach, it's still benefits him today. When he was growing up, one of the things you guys would do is you'd sit around and watch every football game you could watch. And during commercial breaks, you wouldn't just run to the bathroom or run for a bowl full of chips. I mean, you guys would sit there and discuss some of the things you'd just seen. In other words, taking your eye off the ball type of watching football. Hey, did you see that stunt they tried to run? Did you see what they did to pick up that twist? I mean, those types of things. How young of an age were you guys having those conversations, Ray? Walk us through what it was like for you and Zach and how that took shape.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say probably as early as probably 7, 8 years old. I mean, he knew a little bit about probably more than what most kids would know at that age. He knew what a kick slide was pretty early. He knew about twist pickups. He knew to stay on the same level, like all those things like that. We would do that, and like I said, I mean, we would do it kind of to just during the commercial break whenever I would see something and I'd kind of say, hey, look at this, and just so he kind of could get a visual of it. But then as soon as the game would come right back on, we'd be right back to watching the game just like any father son would. But I just thought it was a good way to learn, and he was always wanting to learn, so it always fit in pretty well.
Guys, Ray is a kind of a football nerd like me, in the sense that when we have conversations, it's often about things that normal human beings don't talk about. All right. It's kind of the geeky parts of the game, right? From a game management standpoint on the line. And you can kind of, if you're listening closely, the cracks between the keys are where you find the gold with Ray. Like, listen to what he just said right there. I don't even think he realizes what he said. He just so matter of factly said, little things like staying on the same level. Well, most people have no idea what you're talking about, Ray. What he's describing there, and of course, Zach's probably going to nod and say, "Of course, I know what he's talking about." But when a defense is trying to run stunts, when they're twisting or chopping up the front, one of the things that offensive lines, especially interior offensive linemen like centers and guards, are trained to do is not get disjointed and stay on the same level. But what was striking to me right there is how matter-of-factly Ray said that. Nobody missed a beat. Of course, Zach nodded. I mean, he's 7, 8 years old having these types of conversations. Ray, do you hear yourself?
Well, I mean, he would pick it up fast. I mean, we would just really I wouldn't try to like go crazy with stuff, but like I said, I mean, he was only 7, 8 years old, but he would pick it up pretty fast. So, I mean, I just always thought it was good to have a visual with that. But he was always coachable. I mean, he's always been coachable, and he's always wanted to learn. So, I mean, it's evident. So.
Zach, has it always been center? I mean, has center always been the end goal for you? I know you started your freshman year at left guard, I think 9 of those 10 games, but was center kind of always the ultimate goal, the position that you loved?
I actually played right guard like all through middle school and high school. I didn't play center until I got up to WVU, but I knew like going into it that that was the position they wanted me to play.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How speaking of the center position, let's just talk about O-line a little bit, and we'll go back to the high school days of getting dirty in the wrestling on the wrestling mat here. How, if you could tell, any aspiring athlete in the football world, especially upcoming O-linemen, how important did wrestling play in your growth of athletic ability with the center position, not just center, but guard too, as well, kind of?
Yeah, I would say for any like young offensive lineman or defensive lineman even, I would definitely recommend wrestling, just because there's so much carryover. There's so many, things that I kind of do on the field that I don't really even realize, but it's just like my like natural like reaction just from wrestling. And just knowing how to use your hands and, understanding leverage and really just understanding like where the defensive lineman's weight is and how to move them, based on that.
Would you feel
Get
like
specific
there's
about
a
that.
mental
Good one.
toughness aspect as well, kind of that has, kind of gone with you, grew a little bit because of that as well?
Definitely. That's the other main thing is, wrestling to me is so much harder than football. From a training aspect and just like a mental aspect, as you said too. It's a 6 or 7 minute match, and there's no break like in football. You have a 5-second play and a 40-second break. So I mean, wrestling is you have to be in a lot better shape, and it's also a like mental grind. So I think because I wrestled, it kind of makes football a lot easier. It's not as hard, to train for football as it is for wrestling. So it makes everything else a lot easier for me.
Yeah. When did that journey kind of start for you, that whole wrestling deal?
Yeah, I started when I was probably 4 or 5 years old and wrestled all the way through high school. So something that
Okay.
kind of always,
That explains a lot.
yeah, yeah,
Sure does.
That's a lot
Zach,
of years.
yeah, definitely.
I tell you, my wrestling background, I didn't have one. I married into a wrestling family. I mean, my wife's family, all his uncles, my father-in-law, they're all just tremendous wrestlers, but I've learned to really love the sport. I really, like Zach said, I mean, it really, really just meshes well with football, and I know it's helped him out a lot.
what do you remember when he was 4 or 5 years old about him wrestling?
uh, I just remember him, every year we would I mean, at first he just kind of started out kind of just practicing, and then we just kept every year would kind of build a little bit on it. But I just remember that he really was very competitive, and as he kept growing in the sport, he just kept wanting to do better and better, and he'd work his tail off. I mean, and I think a lot of that, and I know he'd probably want to talk about, but the influence that his grandfathers had on him, because he's was a big influence on him with wrestling, as were all of his uncles. But my father-in-law, he's a former coal miner. He's tough as nails. He's the most mentally tough, physically tough person that you'll find. I know Zach would agree with that, and so he, I'd say his father-in-law's had. I mean, my father-in-law, his grandfather, has had a tremendous influence on him.
Talk about that,
It's
Zach.
hard to beat a grandpa, man.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I would say like my dad was basically my football influence, and then my mom's side of the family was my wrestling influence. And my grandpa definitely helped me with that. I remember I would go to the middle school practice, and then I would go to the high school practice, and then he would take me down to my uncle's house and put me through another workout. So he definitely trained me hard. Yeah. Yeah.
12-hour day. There you go.
Yeah.
So double back
Yeah,
to what
that
I
was
was
normally
talking
on
about
like
earlier.
the Christmas break when you have all day. So
Hey, more spare time.
No
So
days
that's what
off,
Christmas
baby.
break's for, huh?
yeah. Yeah.
I tell you something else he would do that was kind of funny, but he was a master motivator. He would have, some days if there was somebody that was going to be somebody Zach was going to have to wrestle or was going to have to beat, and he'd say, I wonder what that guy from Parkersburg's doing today. wonder I wonder what today. And then he would just walk off, and then Zach would go to work. He would get.
What were summers
Master,
like?
The summers I basically I would go to a wrestling camp or two. But I didn't wrestle outside of wrestling season. Just because football was kind of always my favorite sport. And, as I got older, that's when like all the camps were, and that's where, you had to go to the camps to get recruited. So I didn't really wrestle too much out of wrestling season, but it was mainly just lifting for football and then going to, football camps.
Just real quick too, just segue in what you kind of said. How integral was the weight room for you? Like, did you just fall in love with it? Was it kind of like, because I feel like when I really started lifting weights, I fell in love with the entire process of like training, and then starting to understand like how it worked developmentally, like with my skill and my skill sets. But when did that kind of get integrated into your overall, becoming the mountain of a man you are today?
I would say, I think, I guess my dad could correct me, but I think seventh grade, I kind of started lifting, and that was mainly just like learning technique. I didn't really, start
Body
putting a
weight
lot of
stuff,
weight
kind
on.
of.
Yeah. So just my dad just kind of, taught me good form and stuff like that. And then pretty much from my 8th grade year on, I was lifting, pretty consistently. And, yeah. And then I also, turned our like garage into a weight room, and then just kind of, I guess my dad could talk about it more, but I just asked for like stuff for like Christmas and birthdays until I had a good weight room, and just used it all through high school.
So dad hooked it up, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and one of the things when he first started lifting, like he said, about 7th grade, and obviously you started with really high reps, and he's as competitive. He was competitive then as he is now, and he would always he wanted to move up in weight as fast, and I'd always tell him if you could do these reps, and so he would always be motivated. So if I said 12 reps, well, he'd get to that 13th rep, and then he knew he could move up. But we try to do it smart, early on, because obviously I'm just kind of starting out. But yeah, he worked hard. He was working hard in 7th grade.
That's awesome.
That's
smart.
amazing stuff. Obviously, you can see the work ethic that's grown into what's going on and why you're at where you're at today.
Yeah. So like piggybacking off of that too, Zach, I'm curious. Like you clearly had a vision, you had a plan, you attacked this dream that you had. Was the dream always WVU? I mean, you had some options coming out of high school, right? I mean, you had some other high level programs that you could have played for, but was it always WVU? You talked about how you loved wrestling, but football was really it for you. Was the goal always, I want to play football at WVU? Or did that take maybe a little bit longer to develop?
Yeah, I think like from a young age, like my thing was I always wanted to play in the NFL. Like that was kind of like my goal. I was named after like Zach Thomas, the linebacker for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and I had like a fat head in my room, from probably like third grade on. But so I always wanted to play in the NFL. But and West Virginia was always my favorite, college team growing up too. Kind of when I was going through the like recruiting process with, my first offer was from the old staff, from Holgerson, and they wanted me to play defense. And at the time, I had some offers for offense and defense, and I didn't really have a favorite. I like both just as much, but kind of deep down, I think I knew I'd be better at offense. So when the new staff came, and they said that they would honor my scholarship, but they wanted me to play offense, then it was kind of a done deal, because I don't know, I just kind of felt like I would be better as an offensive lineman than a defensive lineman.
I wouldn't give you always be stealing, man. He was trying to steal Zach, trying to get him over to the defense, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So
yeah, they said
okay,
I was a little too short to play offense.
Well, wait, real quick then, Jed.
tell. Go ahead.
Just real quick, I have to piggyback off of that. Did you have a favorite Mountaineer growing up?
I love watching everyone, even Owen and Pat White, Geno Smith, Tavon
Yep.
Austin, Stedman Bay, all those guys. That was a fun time to, be a kid and watch all that stuff.
It sure was. Sure was.
Yeah, that was probably the best time to, be a kid and watch all those guys. So.
As you can tell, we got a house full of Dolphins fans, guys. We're not going to hold against them. Ray's from Florida. All right. So they got a reason, right? But
hard time now.
So here we go.
I'll tell you one interesting thing, and I don't know,
Yep.
Zach. I think he probably will remember this, but this is a true story. This is the absolute truth. But we were at Stanford, and we were watching the practice one day. We were at, like, it was during their spring football, and we were out there kind of on a visit, and this was kind of like when he was going through the recruiting process, and we're sitting in the end zone watching, because they were actually recruiting him for defense. They were, and so we're watching, defensive position drills. And all of a sudden, Zach nudged me and he said, "Do you hear that?" And I said, "Hear what?" And I couldn't make it out. He said, "You don't hear that?" I kid you not, and Zach can verify this. It was Country Roads playing at the Aquatics Outdoor Center. So I was like, right then I knew it was over, but I didn't say anything. But I knew.
Before we got on the plane, there was like a West Virginia like university like advertisement, like right on the terminal, like in the Pittsburgh airport.
That's awesome.
And then when we went there at the practice there at the like diving center, they started playing Country Roads. And then when we got back, landed or whatever, I fell asleep on the way home. And then like right when I woke up, I looked up and there was like, the West Virginia billboard. So that was
I love
the
it.
ghost of John Denver giving you a nudge.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Story. Yeah.
So you're both
Meant to
centers.
be.
Here's what I got to ask you. All right. Now the game's changed. Ray, as I remember it, when you played for Doug Sams, who was the head coach at Fairmont, you guys had some gun stuff, some stuff in the gun. That's where our podcast got its name. Owen and I both played in the gun. But you were under center a lot too. What I've always thought was unique about center, especially in the modern game, it's the only position in sports that you're basically throwing a no-look pass on every play. You're sending the football somewhere without even seeing where you're sending it. So I always wondered, do you prefer facing an odd front defense in which you'll have a defensive lineman covering you, or do you prefer an even front defense where you're uncovered? And I was always fascinated by these answers. I want both of you to answer that. Like Orlowski, Ty Orlowski always told me, he said, "Jet, I'd rather be covered because it's an easier first step.
Yeah.
I don't have to reach as much. If I'm uncovered, I do. So it's more work after the snap." So what are you guys? Covered, uncovered? Zach, Ray?
Yeah. Let Zach go first. Go ahead.
That's a tough question. I don't know if I really. Maybe I don't know. I like both. I don't have a
both.
I don't think I have a fit.
Does it matter who's covering you? Whether it's Siaki Aiko or right?
Maybe. I think I like to be uncovered. Actually, I like. Yeah. I mean, certain. I don't know. I like both. It's hard for me to.
Well, he's thinking, isn't he? So in other words, you're uncovered. Walk people through this now. In other words, you're gonna move to the nearest defensive lineman to double team, right? You're gonna probably target that hip. Walk people through what you're doing. You're uncovered. You got to first make the snap, which people think is a given, but it's absolutely not.
Yeah.
So walk us through that, and then Ray will answer what he thinks.
Yeah. So it depends on, if we're running stretch or like outside zone or inside zone or counter. So stretch is probably my favorite to 4 down front, just because I like running off the ball, and I feel like I can, tee off on some of those down linemen. And then like inside zone, it's more so maybe inside zone I like having a nose, and then outside zone I like to be uncovered. So I'll put it like that.
We're on to something. I love that. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Perfect sense. Dad, how about you?
For me, it's an even front, definitely. But now, those guys that are better centers than I am, they don't mind an odd or even front. But for me, it's an even front. my dream look would be a 2-eye to be able to, and I like to go lateral a little bit with inside zone. And now stretch was not my best play. I'll be honest. You know, he thankfully has a lot better lateral movement than I do, but he can reach a 3 very easily. I would have a hard time. I'm not, but he has the capability to do that if he needed to. So I'm not the lateral movement was not the best. I kind of joke and I say, I gave him the neck up, but I no, I felt a pretty good career at Fairmont State, but
You sure did.
was the level of what Zach is. So, but I guess it's supposed to be that way. But no, I loved every minute playing college ball. It was great.
You see Big O smiling, Zach, when you were talking stretch? You're
What's
speaking
that?
his language right there. Did you
Oh,
see
yeah.
Owen smiling when you were talking
No,
about the
I
stretch?
couldn't see him on the screen, but that's funny.
Oh yeah, you're speaking
Yeah.
his language right there.
Yeah,
Yep,
Right,
stretch
Big O?
zone, baby. That's what's
Yep.
up. That's
Yep.
where the money's made, man.
Definitely.
Real quick question: a run block, because you kind of noted some of these things, but is it what makes playing line, because fullback and lineman, I'm not, we're kind of the center, the front spear, right? The center of the guards. Fullback's kind of the rear spear. I always felt like I kind of had a connection with those guys up front. But like, there's no real feeling when you pancake box somebody.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to really explain. It's just like, it's all the feel goods of everything. Like, pancaking somebody is like taking somebody's soul away from them.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a beautiful thing, man. And zone blocking leads so many great opportunities to be able to showcase kind of what you can do there. Run us through a zone play, actually, a let's say your favorite run blocking play from this year, like your toughest one you thought you had.
My toughest assignment, is that what?
Toughest assignment, most beautiful result.
Oh, most beautiful result. Oh, okay. So this would probably be a stretch. We ran stretch against BYU. And it was kind of a game plan thing where I kind of knew, like, when the 3 technique like flipped his feet, I knew that the pressure was coming from the other way. And so kind of I knew that I had like a 3 technique to my left and an A-gap player to my right. So I knew that the A-gap player was gonna cross my face. So I kind of like jumped over to the left because I knew he had to try to cross my face, and I kind of like pulled him across, and then also got the linebacker, and it was a big run. But it was mainly because of the film study that we do, and Coach Moore and Ty and Jens and all of our offensive line guys, they work all week, trying to find those little tells from what foot's down. Are they leaning? Do they give away? Do they have different stances when they're moving? Stuff like that, which helps out a lot. So that was kind of probably my favorite play, just because of the film study that went into it, and then the result as well.
Now, are you a guy who spends a lot of time in the labs, quote unquote lab, watching film?
Yeah, definitely. I spend a good amount of time, and then also talking with our coaches. Like I said, they do a really good job of preparing me and kind of telling me what they see as well. And we kind of we'll both watch it. I'll watch it on my own, and then I'll also watch it with them. And they've had a lot of good little bits to tell me and to prepare me, and really help me out throughout my career.
Have you having a fullback and a couple of centers on here, Owen? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
if I had to take a shot every time we were talking about a 2-eye or a 3 technique, I'd be on the floor already. But for those listening, a 2-eye is lined up over the guard, but the inside shoulder of the guard. A 3 technique is over the guard, outside shoulder. So when you hear, for instance, when Zach was talking about that 3 technique to his left, Zach, you were talking pre-snap. His feet were showing you something, right?
Yeah, so normally like a 3 technique on the guard would have his inside foot back to the guard, but he had his outside foot back, which isn't normal in that alignment. But he had his outside foot because he was going to go outside,
Yep.
which meant the pressure was coming from the other way. So
To compensate the other direction. Yeah.
yeah, and that was kind of one of the best things that our coaches found, because it was 100%, throughout the game, and it was nice knowing when you're about to get some movement and stuff
Oh, and
like
how
that.
awesome is that?
Oh man,
that's
it's
awesome.
the best. It's the best. We were talking last week a little bit just on like scouting reports and stuff, and I don't think people really realize how much work goes into, that's like hours and hours and hours of film, not just, when you're really watching, what's going on for those plays. These guys, we're so gracious to get these little scouting reports. They have like 3 or 4 little notes about these players. Now we can go in, really start to fine tune and break these guys down. Like, hey, how am I going to attack this guy? That guy might be more athletic than I am, and most times than not, especially when I got to the next level, it was like everybody was more athletic than I was. It was now, how do I outsmart them by good first steps, alignments, like you were just talking about, all those little things that kind of prolong you and give you some longevity in the pros. I mean, super obviously, you kind of know you are a film guy, a film rat, because you got to be, what I mean? And it only enhances as you go to the next level. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get just a little bit off par here, but how fully stoked are you for where you're at right now in life? I mean, how juiced are you, dude? Like, tell me what you're feeling. Like, I mean, you got to be excited, all these kind of things, man.
Yeah, I'm very excited. It's kind of nerve wracking at the same time, because you don't really know like what's going to happen. Until you get to that draft day or whatever. But it's an exciting position to be in. Even though it is, you can't sometimes you wonder about where you go, but you have no clue where you'll go. And I don't know, it's a really cool position to be in, I would say.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's a lifetime achievement, and you've worked so hard for it, and everything's deserved. I think one thing, a piece of advice I'll give you going into it, because everybody wants to be a first round draft pick, whatever, what I mean? But take what you get, right? And if you don't get that, right, now that's all your motivation to go get it. You know what I mean? I look at a guy like Jason Kelce, who I played with in Philly, undersized dude, not really a ton of pizzazz kind of going into it, but had such a work ethic and a determination to just be a competitor. That's kind of like what I've seen. I was telling Jason when I saw him for his he dropped a Kelce documentary in Philly, and I got to go hang with him for the night. And I was like, dude, there's this kid in West Virginia, man. He's like, he would have drank 23 beers with us at any point. Like, he's that kind of dude. Like, and I don't even know if you drink beer, man, but I'm just saying, Zach Frazier's the dude who would be able to hang with us. But I'm super stoked for you, man. Jed, take it away. I know you got 1,000 answers. I got all mine out of the way. Take it away, Jed.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. And I will say this: I'm glad you mentioned Kelce, because he's retiring, and I think we'd probably all regard him as the best center in the NFL. So the NFL needs a new best center. Well, I'd say I'm going to go Corey Lindsley, probably be the third best. Creed Humphrey be the second best, and yours truly is about to be the best
That's
center in
right.
pro football.
That's right.
That's what's about to happen. So before we get into what played out at Baylor, to some extent, we buried the lead on this podcast. There's not a person that's ever worn a flying WV logo at any point in their life that doesn't want to hear Zach Frazier walk them through what his thought process was at Baylor. We'll get to that in a minute. Finally, before we do, the morning after that soul-crushing defeat at Houston, you and Garrett found a way, and this just says so much about what you are, right, Ray? Outside the lines. Just what a dude you are. You and Garrett took it upon yourselves to drag yourselves out, head to the cancer center, and visit that patient just hours after losing on the road halfway across the country in that fashion to Houston. Talk about what that meant to you guys, what that was all about, how that visit went.
Yeah, we kind of had already planned on going and visiting Katie, but we didn't plan on losing that game, especially in that fashion. But just kind of, puts everything into perspective because, we just had that, terrible loss, and, to lose in that way was, I mean, it hurt so bad, but really put things into perspective because, if that's the worst thing I'm dealing with, there's some people that are dealing with a lot worse things than, than I am. So I think, I mean, really, it kind of, helped me out probably more than her. So, I mean, yeah, yeah.
That's powerful. That's just hats off to you, brother. That says as much or more than as exceptional as what you were on the field. That says so much about you. What we try and explain to people, all three of us on this podcast have always been huge fans of you as a player, but as a person. And any chance we get to talk about those off the field things, and your dad and I spent a lot of time talking about that, which leads us to, okay, last game of the regular season, final possession of the regular season. We find ourselves in a dogfight at Baylor. Turned out to be a tougher environment than what we maybe forecasted or expected. It was a tough place to play that night. That student section was into it behind the bench. They were bringing it, right? Made those plays on special teams, kept hanging around. We found ourselves trailing 31-27, less than a minute to go. We get the ball. Now I can give you my perspective of what happened afterwards. Like, I remember watching you work your way to the sidelines, which I want you to talk about here in a minute. I couldn't believe what I was watching. But when I got in the locker room after the game, after the celebration, I saw the O-line gathered in the training room. And that's when I knew this was something bad. Because, again, here's your brothers reacting to the news they just got about what you were dealing with. And I saw that. And then I came over, and on my way out of the locker room, I'd run back down the tunnel before coming back. And that's when I passed your dad. And it was just his eyes across my eyes, and that's all I needed to see. So that night, after one of the most exceptional, remarkable, amazing careers in the history of West Virginia football, I think one of the things that makes you unique on the final play of your career, the legacy that people 50 years from now will still be talking about was truly born. You entered a stratosphere. You became a folk legend when that happened. I mean, you really did. And we've told Owen, what he did against Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl in that environment, and he gave that speech. He's a folk legend. I mean, it's a very short list of West Virginia football folk legends, right? And we have two of them gracing our presence right on this one podcast. I want you to walk us through. So that happens. The first play of the drive, we're down 31-27, no timeouts left, less than a minute to go. From our sideline, we're going right to left on the field, deep in our own territory. We run the tunnel screen to Huddy. Huddy's about to get tackled well short of the first down marker until you pick him up, carry him across the marker. The defensive lineman from Baylor comes in behind. That's when this injury takes place. Take it from there. Walk us through everything that was going through your mind when it happened as you made your way off the field? Go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, the first play of the drive was a tunnel screen to the left. Like you said, it was 4 down front, so I was, sliding to the left. I had a guy in my gap, and I kind of set towards him and kind of like swatted him by, but he didn't really, bite on it too much. I think he kind of, saw the screen. But I just tried to get him up the field as much as I could. And then when I went to release, normally I have first backer in the box, and it was kind of a weird situation, kind of like the first, or it never really had happened to me before. But when I released out there, there was no one really there for me to get, but Huddy was kind of like right in front of me. So kind of, I kind of just grabbed him. It's something that I've done a lot of times. I've pushed the pile and stuff like that all the time. But kind of started pushing him, like grabbed him, and then that D lineman that I hit up the field that didn't really bite on it, he retraced, and it's kind of, I mean, I don't really know what I would have done in his situation because I'm holding the guy with the ball, and he can't go around me, so he kind of ended up tackling me, wrapped his hands around my waist and dropped down kind of right on the side of my leg. And then I like let go of Huddy, like as that happened, just kind of pushed him forward. But then he came down on the side of my leg, and I knew something wasn't quite right. Kind of felt like my leg, like kind of like I felt like my foot. I didn't hear the snap or anything, but like I felt like my foot was kind of turned, and I just kind of had a lot of pain in that side of the leg, and kind of my thoughts on like 2 minute, right when the play's over, I have to run to the ball. I have to be the first one to the ball, because the clock's running. So kind of like I started screaming, and I knew I couldn't. I knew I wasn't going to be able to run another play. So I knew I had to get off the field too because we didn't have any timeouts, and even then, it's still a 2 minute situation. So you don't want to get that 10-second runoff. So I just kind of rolled over and started. I didn't really want to put any weight on that leg because it wasn't feeling great, but yeah, I was just like screaming and like bear crawling off the field, and then like the ref was yelling at me to get down, so then I kind of like hurried up a little bit and got up to my feet, and I don't know, I just got off the field, and then once I got off the field, the trainers came up to me, and our team doctor came up to me, and I kind of like threw my helmet off and just like laid on the ground, and he started work on me, and he was like, "Where does it hurt?" I was like, "Everywhere." Like I don't know where, I don't know what happened. And then he started like poking on my leg, and that's kind of when I knew something wasn't good, because he kind of like poked like right, or like put his hands like right on my leg, and I could kind of like hear it like crunch and feel it move back and forth, and that's when like my heart kind of sank a little bit. But and then the doctor kind of looked up at me like once he started pressing on it, because like he could feel it too, and I was like, "Is it all right?" And he just didn't say anything, but then ended up going on the like on the gator back to the x-ray room, and they kind of had like it was kind of weird, it was like an iPad, but it was like an x-ray machine, so they kind of like were taking pictures of it, and couldn't really get a good picture at first like 2 times. Then they got it, and I kept asking, "Is it okay? Is it all right?" And the doctor's like, "No, you have a broken fibula." Um, and I don't know. I just kind of was like in shock a little bit, and then I asked them, like, how long's the recovery going to be and stuff like that. Um, and then of course sometime in there they told us that they scored, and then they told me that they won the game, and that was kind of a relief too. But I was my mind was racing all over the place.
Expand on the part where you hit the ground, you felt the pain. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad did that hurt? And did you ever consider, man, I can't move, I got to lay here? You were so hell-bent on getting off the field to avoid that runoff. Talk us through that part of it. That's the sacrifice you made. Because guess what, Zach? If you laid there and we had that runoff, we don't win that game.
Yeah. Kind of, I don't know. It all happened so fast. It's kind of just, once it happened, I just made a decision, like, I'm not going to be able to run another play. I'm not going to be able to put any weight on this. Like, and, that's kind of just as I was rolling over. And right away, I was like, I got to get off the field.
Right away, instinctively.
Yeah, I did it so fast. I just knew that if I couldn't get on the ball, I got to get off the field. Because we had kind of a similar situation actually in the Houston game, where one of our guys went down and almost cost us some time. We ended up scoring anyways, but you know how that ended. But I don't know. I just knew I had to get off the field. But at the same time, some, or like people would say like I was the reason we won the game and stuff, which I think I probably did save some time and maybe help the drive, like with just momentum, like, because there's 4 plays later, everyone, and we scored, but at the same time, you have Yates coming in, and he hadn't taken a snap, the last snap he took was at pregame, and he had played some guard, but he came in and had 4 perfect snaps, made all the calls. And, if he goes in there and has, a bad snap or something, snaps it over his head or something like that, that would never have happened. And then Garrett too, marched right down the field. I feel like, Garrett's one of the best, 2-minute quarterbacks we have, because of the threat of him running. If everyone drops back and, covers all our receivers, he's just going to take off, and it's going to be a huge game. Or gain. So without like those guys, we wouldn't have won the game if they didn't, execute on those last 4 plays. But I just kind of, I think I gave us a little bit better of a chance, but they kind of, I think they won the game.
So you carry him past the sticks. That stops the clock. If you don't do that, the clock doesn't stop there. Then you got off the field to avoid the runoff. And yet, when we ask you to relive this story, Ray, I have 2 sons. I can't imagine the pride that you're swelling with to sit there and hear Zach be as deferential as he is, given the platform and opportunity to tell that story. And what's he do? But he talks about his teammates. He talks about Brandon coming in, next man up, doing his job. He talks about Garrett being that's what makes Zach Zach. When I talked to you the other night, Ray, again, when we get up on the phone, we're talking for 2 hours sometimes, right? But one of the things I mentioned to you, one of the things after the Super Bowl that was talked about the morning after was the 49ers didn't understand the difference in the overtime rules in the postseason versus the regular season. And they were blaming Kyle Shanahan, their head coach, for not explaining it to them. And I was like, do you think Zach Frazier would need his head coach to explain that to him? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He's a cut apart, a different breed. Ray, what are your thoughts when you hear Zach talk about that?
Well, I mean, to me, that's who he is. That's who he's always been. I mean, I told him a long time ago, I like coaching offensive line when I did coach, because, there are no stats other than winning. And that's the one that matters. And that's all that ever is going to matter to him. He's always going to be about his teammates. But one of the things that stood out to me, and I know you mentioned earlier about, when everything how it kind of transpired with coming down the locker room, you passed me, and we all went down there as a family. That was hard. That was tough. I mean, but the one thing that'll always stick out in my mind, and I'll always remember just as clear as day, is when, I saw the way, all of his teammates, offense, defense, didn't matter. How, like you said, I mean, they just won a game. It was an awesome win, but they were genuinely concerned about his well-being and the amount of respect that they had for him. And you earn that, and that's one of the things that I think that's above any award that anybody could ever have. You have the respect of your teammates when you finish and it's all said and done, and that's how he left it. And that's I mean, that's what I know how his teammates viewed him, and that was just that was something. I was just kind of standing there just watching, and it was something to see.
That's awesome.
Zach, you come from a group of guys who, like, I think back to, and it just speaks to how tight you really are. Like, I'm trying to remember what game was it that Wyatt got poked in the eye? What game was that? Do you remember?
TCU.
TCU,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, I remember coming in at halftime, and he's in there worried about whether he can go or not. I mean, he's worried to death if he's going to play another snap. And are you guys being all warm and fuzzy? Oh, don't worry. No, you're making fun of him. You guys were around him making fun of him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was sitting there in stitches just watching. He's like, oh, and he's cussing you back. I mean, I was sitting there thinking that group is absolutely inseparable. So when that happened to you, and I saw Doug and I saw Wyatt, I saw the whole crew just huddled. I was thinking to myself, I was choked up before I passed your dad. So let's close with this. What was that reception like in that dark, trying, difficult, challenging, impossible time? You received the news about that injury. You understand you're about to start the next chapter of your life. And I've said it on this podcast. I've said it to your dad. I've said it a million times. Somebody's going to draft you, not despite what happened to you with that injury, but because of what happened to you. That is one of the many things that will make you shine, how you'll respond, how you have responded to that injury. Walk us through what it was like when your buddies on the O-line, some of the guys from the defense, your teammates, all those guys that you went to battle with and bled and sweat and cried together with for 4 years, came in there to support you.
Yeah. I guess I would say, like, I guess that was probably like always like my worst fear is, getting a bad injury like that. And kind of like, yeah, that's probably always been like my worst fears. I just don't want to ever, be hurt and then not be able to play. And then, so for that to happen, in the last game, it was, my mind was, kind of racing everywhere. But kind of when I saw, all my teammates in there, how concerned and how, much, that they cared about, me, and all my family was there, and stuff like that. It kind of like I wasn't as upset because they were all feeling bad for me. So like, how could I wasn't getting, I kind of felt bad for all of them that they were, feeling upset and stuff like that. But kind of, like changed I don't know. It was tough.
You did.
It was tough for me to see all of them, react like that. And, I thought, like I said, I thought it would be, like the end of the world, but, it's really not. And I've kind of, done well with rehab, and I'm on and actually, my injury they said I was lucky and said that it was kind of like the best case. You know, if I had to have that injury, it was, you know, the best case is just the bone and that it would heal, and I didn't, you know, do any ligament damage, which if I did that, that would be, you know, a lot worse. So it wasn't the end of the world. And you know, just having everyone's support was, you know, really nice. Another crazy thing, before we got or went down for pregame meal, we were watching the Michigan Ohio State game, and they had, you know, one of their guards went down and, you know, snapped his leg and got carted off, and that made me a little sick. I was like, wow, that would, you know, that would be like my worst fear. And, you know, it kind of went down and ate pregame meal, and I didn't really, I don't know, I didn't have the best stomach for it, but it was kind of crazy that it happened.
Guess what? That's in the rear view. That is behind you. And just like Owen said, the point that you're at in your life right now, what's the old saying? It gets darkest right before the light. Well, the light's coming. Right. I mean, the light is a coming, and Mountaineer Nation is about to have a brand new favorite team, and they're going to follow you to the end of the world, and you're going to have a long, flourishing career at the next level. That we have zero doubt that make it hell. You're going to be great. You're going to be a great pro football player, just like you've been a great everything you ever tried to do. Great teammate, great friend, great son, great center. You're going to be a great pro football player. That's going to happen. If Zach Frazier was a stock, I'd be buying it big right now, guys. I mean, I'd be buying it big. I would have bought it.
Jokes on you, Jed. Jokes on you. Owen and I stocked up on Zach Frazier stock like 2 years ago.
There you go.
We've been sitting on this gold mine, baby. Real quick.
So we have decided one more. Hey, Wes, Zach. Okay, there's Paul Bunyan and there's the Blue Ox. We can't decide which are you and which is Owen. Right, the West Virginia folk legends here.
Zach,
right?
Listen, Zach, you're dating yourself with that reference there a little bit. All right, Jed?
Yeah. Don't even worry about it, bud.
My dad would tell me the same thing.
And we appreciate the hell out of you guys for the time. And just real quick, Zach, before we go, everything that Jed just said there, we completely echo, and we love the attitude and the outlook in life. And man, like, no matter what you end up doing for the next 10 years, for the next 50 years, like when you have that attitude, that outlook, it's always going to serve you well. You're always going to be successful. We love hearing that. I just wanted to ask you real quick before I do our sign off here about that legacy thing, the cult hero thing, the folk hero thing, right? Like your legend that you leave. I know that's probably it's a really hard thing to discuss in your early 20s, right? To think about your legacy. But is that something that has crossed your mind? I know you've dealt with the injury and I know this whirlwind process of preparing for the draft and your pro days and the combine and the Senior Bowl and then the draft, and then you'll go to your new city and you'll have rookie mini camp and OTAs, and it's like your head's spinning the whole time. But have you thought about that legacy at all? That final play against Baylor, obviously, and ending it that way. We talk about all the time. I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you got onto campus, WVU was averaging 73 yards per game rushing. I mean, it was like, can we get 100 yards on the ground? That was like can Letty Brown rush for 100 yards? Please, God. To now over 230 a game, the best rushing attack in Power 5. I mean, what you did over your 4 years, capped by this season of getting the program turned around with the whipped cream of the cherry on top of that folk hero type ending down in Baylor. Has that been something, again, I know this is really hard to ask somebody in your early 20s, but have you thought about that legacy at all?
Yeah, that is a tough,
I know I kind of put you on the spot there. I apologize.
Yeah, kind of the way I would say I try not to, like, I never want to get like complacent or good with where I'm at. So
satisfied. You never want to be satisfied. Yeah.
So I've kind of went through college and like I've gotten a good bit of awards and stuff like that, but I kind of just I don't like let that kind of like get to me if that makes sense. I kind of like just not push them off to the side, but obviously like thank the Lord for being in that position, and thankful for the awards, and thankful for the position that I'm in. But I just try to, like one day when I'm done playing football, I feel like I'll look back on everything and probably be pretty proud. But I try not to. I feel like I just have like I want to go a lot further, and I want to, I've big goals, and I don't ever want to just be satisfied. So, but yeah, I'm sure there'll be whenever I'm done playing, and I'm sure I'll look back on everything that's happened and be pretty happy.
Well, young man, keep that tunnel vision, because it's going to take you places without a doubt. You got 1.8 million West Virginians and a whole bunch of other alumni like me that are pulling for you. So keep attacking that rehab, keep attacking every day, and we're looking forward to seeing how this all plays out over the next couple months.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Well, gentlemen, this has been a lot of fun. We've kept you way too long, so let me wrap this thing up. For Zach and Ray Frazier, and the best teammates in the business, the signal caller Jed Drenning and the runaway beer truck Owen Schmidt, I am Wesley Euler. The one thing we ask of you as we wrap this up is to be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Get ready to find your new favorite WVU or your new favorite NFL team, pardon me, to root for here in a couple months, wherever Zach lands. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. You've been In the Gun.